The wrong person doesn't need to yell, hit, or threaten to destroy your life. The most dangerous ones do this silently, with tricks you don't even notice. They make you check your phone dozens of times a day, not because you want to, but because you need to. They turn love into addiction, and addiction into prison. Emily only realized she had become a ghost the night she saw Adrian talking to her as if she wasn't even there. Not shouting, not angry, just cold, as if she had dissolved into the air around him. "You're exaggerating again," he murmured, his eyes glued to his phone. It was the kind of phrase that doesn't hit like a punch, but corrodes like acid, because deep down, she no longer knew if she was exaggerating or disappearing. And the scariest part? He didn't betray her that night. He didn't yell, he didn't leave. He did something far darker. He trained Emily to doubt her own existence. This is not a story about a breakup. It's about a slow, psychological death. A death you could suffer by sleeping next to the same person every night. Adrian did not destroy Emily with violence. He destroyed it with silence, rewrites, and small reprogrammings. The kind that makes you question your own memory, your own reactions, your own worth. The kind that turn a living woman into a shadow of herself. And before we continue, if any part of this already sounds too familiar, consider signing up. Stories like this help people see what they couldn't name before. Now, she goes back to when Emily seemed safe, normal, almost perfect. Emily met Adrian on an ordinary late afternoon with no sign of danger in the air. He had a slow, almost serene smile that would make anyone lower their guard without realizing it. He spoke with calculated calm, as if everything was always under control. She noticed that he listened in a different way, deeply, focused, almost clinically. He repeated short phrases of hers, as if he really understood. Emily found it unusual, beautiful, and welcoming. "I like the way you see the world," he said in their first conversation. That sentence melted away years of invisibility within her. He seemed to see things that no one else had ever seen before. He seemed to see through her, not just for her. He wasn't too intense, nor invasive, nor clingy. It was simply a gift, just the right size to seem perfect. Gentle good morning messages, long evening conversations full of coincidences. Emily thought she was being loved, but in reality, she was being chosen in the most strategic way possible. Adrian began to memorize small details that anyone else would ignore. He knew her favorite coffee without having to ask twice. He could tell when she twisted the ring out of nervousness and mentioned it with a rehearsed sweetness. "I pay attention," he would say, and Emily felt special. But paying too much attention can also mean silent study. He repeated her tastes, mirrored her opinions, and imitated her dreams. If she mentioned a book, he would say he had read the same one. If a fear was mentioned, he would say he felt the same thing. Everything fit together too easily to be a coincidence. It seemed like destiny when it was just an emotional strategy. Emily confused being in tune with actual compatibility. He confused mirroring with intimacy. Adrian wasn't just getting closer, he was collecting in-depth data. This was how he prepared the ground for control. The first few months were a warm, comfortable, almost hypnotic embrace. Adrian made Emily feel rescued from the depths of her own life. He appeared at the right times with the right words and the right energy. He seemed to know her rhythm better than she knew herself. Sometimes, however, a subtle, almost invisible tension would arise. The way he looked for a second longer than necessary, the surgical precision of every gesture, questions too deep, too intimate, or too quick. Emily felt a slight discomfort but ignored it. She thought it was insecurity on her part, not a warning sign. Everything seemed calm, stable, too perfect to question. Such perfections are rarely real. Adrian never planned to love her. He planned to shape her. He didn't want a partner. He wanted an extension of himself. And Emily was about to be rewritten, piece by piece. The change began with small comments, almost impossible to identify as manipulation, phrases that sounded like care, not control. "Those friends are just using you, Emily. You deserve better people." She smiled, thinking he only wanted to protect her, but he kept repeating it, repeating it, repeating it, until it becomes true within her. Then came the phrases about her family. "They don't understand you like I do. You always come back anxious after talking to them." Emily began to wonder if that was really the case. Before she knew it, she was canceling dates without knowing exactly why.
Then came the work. "You always come back drained. They exploit you." Adrian transformed everything in her life into a silent threat. If everyone else was a threat, he was the only safe haven. Emily didn't realize she wasn't getting peace, she was losing territory. Adrian didn't push people away from her, it distanced her from her own reality. Silence was his second weapon, and the sharpest one. There were no open fights nor intense arguments, only absence, a calculated, cold absence. When Emily asked, "Are you okay?" the blade would come softly, "You're imagining problems again." She began to measure her words before speaking, so he began to measure feelings before feeling them. He would apologize before even opening his mouth. Some nights she would cry quietly in the bathroom so he wouldn't hear, not because he forbade it, but because he seemed disappointed when she cried, and his disappointment hurt more than any scream. Emily was trying not to be a problem, to fix, to please, to fit in. It was an emotional labyrinth where Adrian was always at the center, and she was always wrong. He didn't need to raise his voice to break it. He just needed to shut up at the right time. Emily's world was becoming smaller, narrower, suffocating, but it seemed to be her own choice. She stopped going out with friends because he would become distant afterwards. She stopped posting photos because he was implying intentions that didn't exist. She stopped sharing her opinions because he always corrected everything with impeccable logic. Every opinion she gave turned into an exaggeration. Every doubt turned into a drama. Every emotion turned into a flaw. And with time, she began to believe. Emily didn't realize she was disappearing. "I was busy trying to be enough." But no one is enough for someone who exists only to control. She remained quiet where she was alive, passive where it was intense, insecure where it used to be brilliant. Adrian's trick was never to control what she did, it was about controlling who she believed herself to be. And that version of Emily was nearly dead. What Adrian was doing wasn't jealousy, concern, or emotional drama. It was gaslighting, a mechanism widely studied in psychology. Research into psychological violence shows that gaslighting causes micro fissures in the victim's perception. These fissures cause the person to doubt their own judgment, as if the mind were being gradually reprogrammed. It's like confusing shadows with truths, and truths with exaggerations. When Adrian said, "You're imagining things," he wasn't just denying a fact, he denied her ability to interpret reality. The human brain, when repeatedly exposed to emotional invalidation, enters self-preservation mode. It tries to adapt to the safer version of reality, and in Emily's life, the safer version became Adrian. Studies show that after weeks of gaslighting, victims begin to ask for permission to feel. They begin to consider themselves too sensitive, too dramatic, too confused, exactly how Emily began to see herself. She wasn't getting weak. My perception was being dismantled. Technically, this is induced cognitive erosion. Another crucial point was the emotional dependence shaped by intermittent reinforcement. Experimental psychology has already shown that behaviors are shaped when rewards come in an irregular way. It's the same mechanism that keeps people trapped in gambling, addictions, and toxic relationships. Adrian did exactly that. Affection, silence, tenderness, coldness, extreme attention, calculated distance. Emily's brain became fixated on the search for the next dose of approval. When he disappeared, she thought the problem was her. When he returned sweet, she called it gratitude. This cycle creates a real neurological addiction, short-term dopamine. Research into abusive relationships shows that victims often confuse relief with love, and this type of relationship alters the functioning of the amygdala, the region that detects danger. In other words, the person loses the ability to recognize that they are being hurt. Emily wasn't fooled, she was chemically bound, and Adrian knew exactly how to maintain that. His personality also played a part. Studies on malignant narcissism show that certain people don't want partners, they want emotional mirrors. They feed off the impact they cause. Clinical research describes identity voiding. It's not about destroying someone all at once, it's about wearing them down. Remove color by color, choice by choice, until almost nothing remains. Emily was victim of this silent process. Science calls this induced depersonalization. It's when a person starts to feel that they no longer exist as they once did. That's exactly what happened to her. She became an emotional ghost, while Adrian remained there, not because he loved her, but because he needed her to stop loving herself.
The breaking point came on a rainy Thursday, when Emily found a cell phone hidden in Adrian's car. It wasn't the messages that destroyed her. That was how he described her to another woman. She's fragile. She won't leave. She needs me. As if Emily were a project he was designing, not a person. When confronted, Adrian didn't explode. He gave a wry smile, the same cold smile that had already conditioned her to remain silent. "You're imagining things again," he whispered, using the doubts he himself had created as a weapon. But this time, something inside her clicked into place instead of falling apart. Emily recorded the conversation, every contradiction, every denial, every distorted phrase. For the first time, he heard the abuse from the outside, not from within the fog he was creating. That night, she packed her bags and left while he was still talking. Adrian didn't chase after her. He assumed she would return, as always. Days passed, then weeks, and for the first time, he was the one sending messages non-stop. When silence became her only response, Adrian realized the truth. It hadn't turned Emily into a ghost. He had created one for himself. Emily rebuilt her life quietly, starting with the basics: sleep, sunlight, people who spoke to her kindly. Without control, Adrian plunged into the same emptiness that had previously caused her. The intimidating presence he once commanded has given way to the silence that now suffocates him. Emily didn't escape because she stopped loving him. She escaped because she finally understood the truth. Ghosts don't disappear all at once. They dissipate. And it had been fading for months, word for word, choice for choice, moment for moment. Adrian didn't break it violently. It broke due to distortion. He distorted her reality until his version seemed more reliable than hers. He used mirroring to become the perfect man, and then he used the separation to punish her for existing. He built a dependency in which Emily needed his approval to feel real. Beneath it all, there was a silent and disingenuous narcissism, the kind that smiles while erasing you. Emily didn't win by facing Adrian in a big, dramatic scene. She won when she began to see it clearly. Because clarity breaks spells. Clarity restores identity, and as soon as she regained her senses, Adrian's power evaporated. 3 lessons from this very important story. Lesson 1. If someone makes you doubt your own mind, that's the first sign. When every conversation ends with "you're exaggerating," "you misunderstood," "it never happened that way," it's not you who's getting confused. It's your perception being deliberately attacked. Lesson 2.
Control almost never feels like control at first. It comes disguised as concern, as logic, as "I only want what's best for you." If after these conversations you feel smaller, more isolated, more silent, that's not care, that's emotional control. Lesson 3. Whoever punishes your emotions doesn't love you. If crying, questioning, or disagreeing leads to silence, withdrawal, or guilt, then that person is not protecting the relationship. It's protecting its own power over you. You weren't made to live your life apologizing for existing, not even to diminish one's own brilliance to fit someone else's ego. If this story reflected even a shadow of your own life, you also deserve to rediscover yourself. Subscribe to the channel if you want more stories that explain what you've experienced but never been able to name. Share your experience. Your truth might be exactly what someone needs to read tonight to wake up. And don't leave yet. Watch the next video because it delves deeper into the same patterns of control and emotional dependence that you saw here.